Welcome to the fourth episode of the Rife Rundown, and welcome back. This is a show where we talk about politics and world events that are occurring. If you're new, hit that subscribe button down below and smash that like button if you find our content worthy of that like. Today we're going to be talking about Trump's recent executive order that he signed on the 23rd that is going to ban, quote, chemical castration and medical mutilation of innocent children in the United States. And this is a huge win for the conservative movement. This is an issue that far left progressive Democrats they've hijacked the entire party on this view. There's maybe, this is an 80-20 issue. 80% of Americans agree with President Trump on this. And the 20%, probably not even 20%, the 10% have completely hijacked and taken the Democrat Party hostage on an issue like this. This was an issue that President Trump campaigned super, super hard on. There's a report from the New York Times that he had spent close to $65 million, and I believe it was 12 states, on transgender ads. And these were some of the most effective ads, the most famous. Kamala Harris is for they, them, and Trump is for he, she, and it's just true. Because Kamala Harris, they hijacked it. But it was one of the most effective advertisements that was used throughout the entire 2024 election. Like I said, $65 million spent in 12 different states on advertising this. And I think we should just point out and give a lot of appreciation to President Trump for calling it what it is, calling it mutilation. Because this is mutilation. This is not gender-affirming care. The prior guidance that we had from our prior president, Joe Biden, if you can even call him a president, was from the World Professional Association for Transgender Health. And they use flawed science. They use flawed science and radical gender ideology to push their beliefs on the majority of kids. And they would repackage this as, quote, gender-affirming care, when truly it's mutilation. It is mutilation. And they would use scare tactics against parents, telling parents that, if you don't allow your child who clearly has a mental disorder like gender dysphoria, if you're not going to allow your child to mutilate themselves, chemically or surgically mutilate themselves, that child is going to kill itself. When did we let the kids take control of the narrative, take control of the conversation? You are kids. We are the adults. You do what we tell you to do because you're children. You are dependent on us. And if you don't think, and when you're talking about this, when you hear gender-affirming care, you don't think about the irreversible damage that can be caused by gender-affirming care or mutilation. You hear something that's very nice, affirming. That seems very nice. That's what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to affirm. Well, not really. Because mutilation causes irreversible damage. It does. And the Biden administration, did everything they could to push child mutilation. Maybe it had something to do with all the money they were getting from these big pharma companies by prescribing these drugs and performing these surgeries. They exploited children, their insecurities and their mental health to make a profit. That's what these big pharma companies did, and along with the insurance companies. And Biden tried to rewrite Title IX to use gender identity instead of sex. Well, that basically nullifies the entire idea behind Title IX. It's specifically there to protect on the basis of sex, not gender identity. If it's on the basis of gender identity, you can just change your gender identity whenever you want. The Biden administration also tried to stop schools from banning biological males from competing in women's sports and threatened to withhold federal funding to schools that didn't allow them for transgender athletes to compete in female sports. But, Biden really didn't know what he was doing. He really wasn't there. It was a bunch of 20-year-old staffers that were running the whole show in the Biden administration. But back to the executive order that Trump signed. The Protecting Children from Chemical and Surgical Mutilation. What we're seeing in here is that the order will stop any U.S. government funds from sponsoring, promoting, or assisting the transition of a child, and all federal agencies will be required to cut federal funding for institutions that provide chemical and surgical mutilation to children. This is a huge win. if you are going to mutilate children, if you're going to take advantage of children that are in a mental health crisis, that need an adult, they need an adult figure in their life. And all the adult figures are saying, hey, you know what? You should have surgery. You should take drugs. You should chemically castrate yourself. And that's going to really affirm who you really are. This is exactly what we need to be seeing here. If you're getting federal dollars, you're not going to promote, assist, or sponsor the transition of a child. It's just not going to happen. And also along with this executive order, within 90 days of the signing of this, it states that the Secretary of Health and Human Service, which hopefully will be RFK Jr. if confirmed soon, will publish a review of the existing literature on best practices for promoting the health of kids with gender dysphoria or other identity-based confusion. This is exactly what we need to be seeing. We need a game plan. It is not just good enough to say that this is not what we're going to do. We're not going to mutilate children. That's a great start. But we need to, these people don't go away. The mental health issues don't go away. They are still there. How is the United States, as a country, as a moral authority, going to move forward? And how are they going to look at people with these mental disabilities? And how are they going to help them? That's what we need. How are we going to help the kids with gender dysphoria and any other identity-based confusions? Along with this executive order, the DOJ must now prioritize investigating people and institutions that would subject young women to these, quote, demonic practices. This is exactly what we need. We need to go after the people who allowed this to happen. Who are the adults in the room who allowed this to happen? Who are the entities that exploited children to make money? Who exploited children, put them, castrated them? They are people who are trying to detransition. They're never going to be able to have kids in their life because of what happened. And we need to go after these people. Along with the executive order, or I should say, within the executive order, it also will exclude, and I know they had already passed this in a recent bill, but it just lays out further verbiage when it comes to this, but excluding transgender care or transition care from the military health insurance TRICARE, which currently covers about 2 million people in the United States. And along with that, they are now going to require that inside of the federal employees' health benefits, so the health package that is provided to federal employees, and it also will extend to the United States Postal Service health program, that insurance carriers who participate in that program that provide federal health benefits, they must exclude coverage for transitioners. And also, the Trump administration is going to negotiate with these insurance companies to make sure that there's a reduction in premium for the reduction in coverage that will be provided. So not only are we not going to be paying for it, we're also going to we're going to get some money back from it, which is just absolutely wonderful. And really what we need to do is we need to see Pam Bondi, and she needs to take action against these entities that deceived consumers on the long-term health effects of surgical and chemical mutilation. Why is it that this was allowed to happen? We need to make sure that this never happens again. We can never let the far-left progressive wing of the party hijack culture like this in America ever again, where it becomes okay to surgically and chemically mutilate yourself. And there were states that would try and go after parents, legally go after parents who would not affirm their God-given gender. It's like all in all, this is a huge step for the Trump administration, following through on their campaign promises. I'm really interested to see how this all plays out. Obviously, this is just the initial executive order. There's still a lot of work to be done. Like we had talked about earlier, the Secretary of Health and Human Services, within 90 days, needs to publish literature on best practices for how we're going to deal with gender dysphoria, and along with cutting all federal funds. So, as you know right now, the Trump administration has paused a lot of federal funding so they can kind of go through with a fine-tooth comb and see, are there things in here that we shouldn't be funding? They've paused trillions of dollars in discretionary spending that they're going to be able to comb through and make sure that where the money's being spent is aligned with the Trump administration and where the majority of the Americans are. We don't want to spend money on DEI, and we don't want to spend money on transitioning kids. So that'll be it for today. I appreciate everybody stopping in today. Hit that like button if you enjoyed this video, and have a great rest of your day now.